Have you heard of Bell's palsy before? I honestly didn't know what it was until I was diagnosed with it while pregnant at 40. And it was honestly a double whammy of fear and stress. Bell's palsy is a condition where you have temporary facial paralysis, as well as a few other symptoms which I'll get into later on. And 1 in 60 people will get it some point in their lifetime, which was a shock to me. If you watched my previous video, I had mentioned that I've been dealing with some chronic illness, and this has definitely been part of that story. I had filmed a vlog of my experience while actually going through it in real time, which I have now dug out of the archives. If you want to know how I'm doing now, 2 years down the road, postpartum in my Bell's palsy journey, then make sure you watch till the end. So here's my story and what I was feeling and going through 2 years ago. Hey guys, as you know, I mentioned that I am 40 and I'm also pregnant, and when you're 40 and pregnant, there's something that people coin you as not advanced maternal age, no, you're geriatric. Isn't that so rude? Like, I'm a geriatric pregnant person? I mean, there should be a better way to say that. Not everyone explodes when they're 40 and pregnant, but I kind of did. Okay, so I already talked about in my last couple of videos how I went to Austin for a 40th birthday trip with some girlfriends, and it was so much fun. But then when I came back, I could feel on the plane ride home that there was like pain behind my ears, and I thought it was because I was wearing the mask a lot, because it was still like height of pandemic and everyone was wearing masks everywhere. In the middle of the night, I woke up twice from pain, but I just took Tylenol, shook it off, and just went back to sleep. Then when I woke up in the morning, I was completely shocked to see that my face had fallen down. So it was my right side of my face. I woke Joe up and I'm like, I have to do something. Well, I first called the OB because I knew I was pregnant. Not every practice is like this, but they don't usually see you till you're about 8 weeks along. So I didn't even have an official checkup. The only thing that I was able to do was I begged them so I could get a blood test before I went to Austin just to verify that I was pregnant. And I was. And the only scary part about that was when I went to Austin, I already knew that I had low progesterone levels and low HCG levels. That's kind of like a sign that you might miscarry. So even when I was in Austin, the doctor prescribed me medicine to pick up over there. And so that's why I had to tell my friends that I was pregnant, and then he took me to the pharmacy and I picked up the medicine and stuff too. So that made me extra paranoid. I went to urgent care with Joe, and Lincoln was with me, and then they checked my blood pressure and saw that it was skyrocketed high. I was just told at urgent care that I have to go to the ER because of my high blood pressure, and because there's not much that can treat me here. So I'm gonna go there next. So we get there to the ER, and Joe can't walk in with me, neither can Lincoln. Once again, I'm in a position where I have to walk into the ER alone, feeling completely traumatized while I'm pregnant. So of course I have like PTSD. The last time this happened to me, I was actually suffering from a miscarriage. So all of those memories started flooding back, and I was getting very nervous, which in turn made my blood pressure rise up even more. I'm in the ER right now, and I'm about to get an MRI, and they're saying a bunch of stuff to me that's really scaring me, such as stroke. Very concerning. They're gonna call my OB. Yeah, I'm gonna have to maybe stay here for a few hours to possibly overnight. Joe was waiting around for me. I just called him to go home. So then when I was getting my blood pressure measured, everyone's freaking the heck out, like, what is going on? She has no medical history. She's like fairly young, and they really thought I was gonna have a stroke. So everyone's running around like crazy, making me super paranoid and scared, and they're not telling me anything. So in the beginning, I was feeling okay. They're just doing some standard tests, but they immediately put an IV in my arm, and then they were just pumping in medicine to lower my blood pressure immediately. But it wasn't really working because I'm just panicking. So I'm just getting more and more riled up all along while this is going on. I'm sad, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, but I'm also just praying and trusting in God. I know that people are praying for me too, my friends and Joe. At one point they wheeled me into another place, and then I just started crying. I was just feeling very alone, and no one was telling me anything. And like I said, mind you, I didn't even have my first ultrasound to verify that the baby was in the uterus and that everything was okay. It ended up taking hours to get any information that I needed. With the ultrasound, I felt a little bit better. I got my MRI done. I'm still waiting for the results. It takes about an hour. I also got my ultrasound done. So I found out that I'm 5 weeks and 6 days pregnant. So I'm a little earlier than I expected.
So I'll be 6 weeks tomorrow. But yeah, they did see the little dot of the baby in the right spot and maybe even a little flicker, so I'm happy about that. Yeah, I still have the same pains that I have, but I'm much more calm and my blood pressure is going down, so I'm very thankful.
So then I get wheeled into another area, and I think this is like, you know, it's kind of like the recovery area. But I ended up being on a floor that was for, I think it was like for heart patients. So because they were still afraid that I might be stroking out or I might have some kind of problem with my heart. So it was like the cardiac floor. And that was kind of interesting too, because everyone there looked like they were really in dire straits. They were like elderly patients, mostly bedbound, hooked up to a bunch of machines. So all you hear is like sterile, like beeping noises. And I was the only like youngish, whippersnapperish looking kind of person there. So I felt really misplaced and I was confused why I was there, but they were still very nervous about me at this point.
So it looks like I'm staying overnight, but the good thing is my friend Audrey is dropping off an overnight bag while Jill picks up Lincoln from school. So I'm excited that I don't have to conserve my phone battery anymore. It's now about 5 o'clock p.m., 5:08, and I haven't eaten anything in like seriously hours. The last time I ate was probably about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. No stroke. They ruled out stroke, which is really good. But the OB visited me and made me feel confident because the blood pressure medicine and the Bell's palsy medicine won't interact with my pregnancy.
Anytime I'm in the hospital like this, for some reason, my battery on my phone is always about halfway empty. So a lot of times I was just sitting in silence, staring at the ceiling, like with my own thoughts, just so I could conserve my battery just in case of an emergency. Mind you, for vanity's sake, I was also a hot mess because not only was my face fallen, I, had like no makeup on. My hair was a frumpled mess. It wasn't even brushed. It needed to be washed. And I took footage of myself. I didn't want to, but I felt like I needed to just to capture it for the moment, for a time like this when I knew that one day I would share it.
Just so I can keep a record of this. This is half my face frozen. My eye is drooping and my nose is kind of turning to the left. So it's my right side of my face that's kind of drooping. And look at my mouth. It's like crooked. When I smile, I look like the Joker or like Two-Face. And I am talking out of this one side of my mouth.
I was feeling sick. I started to feel the nausea at this point too, the pregnancy nausea, but it was probably because I was like starving on an empty stomach and having all these medicines pumped into me. Not to mention that every 15 minutes, a nurse would come by and check on me because I had a blood pressure cuff on me on one arm and it would squeeze me so hard to the point that my fingers would turn blue. And then they would switch it to the other arm and do the same thing. And this was like every 15 minutes for hours on end. So obviously I couldn't even sleep. Finally, around dinner time, I remember the kitchen closed at 6, but it was like 5:50. An angel of a nurse came by and I like begged her. I was like, can I please order something for food? And she looked and she's like, oh, well, you better do it now because the kitchen's going to close in 10 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh. So she just called in an order and ordered like a whole bunch of random things. Like, I was like, I don't know, maybe a chicken sandwich. And then she's like, you want this too? This as well? And I'm like, sure. So she just ordered me like a ton of stuff. And it came, and I will tell you, it felt like the best food I ever ate.
Oh my gosh, praise the Lord. I finally get my first bite since 9 a.m. and I ordered like everything. Oh, soup. Start with some soup. And I ordered a grilled chicken sandwich. I don't even know. Pudding? I think it's pudding. And then broccoli.
But it was hard because of the Bell's palsy. I couldn't control my mouth, like how wide I opened. I felt like I was like constantly drooling. I couldn't really chew.
I probably shouldn't have ordered a grilled chicken sandwich because I have to eat it one-handed because I'm being monitored for my blood pressure. Every 5 minutes, it's squeezing my arm until my hand turns purple. And then the nurse is actually going to change it every 15 minutes. Then it'll be changed every hour.
Not to mention my eye started to really sting and really hurt, but every time I mentioned it, I felt like I was being ignored because it seemed so low priority to everyone that my eyeball hurt. But to me, it just felt like a scratched cornea, like very irritated, just constantly tearing. And then the tearing made my skin all dry and it was just like so raw. But thankfully, I was able to talk to my brother-in-law on the phone, who's an ophthalmologist, and he was able to let me know how to describe my pain and what kind of medicines to ask for. And there's no like ophthalmologist on the floor. So I had to ask for those specific medicines and those specific gels for my eye, and even the kind of tape to put on my eye, like silk tape, instead of the ones that they were giving me. And so that helped, but it took a long time for them to even get approval, to track it down, to ask the doctor, to get the prescription for it to come. So all those things didn't even come until like really late at night or even the next day. And then eventually the nurse found me an eye patch that made me look like a legit pirate. But that helped because then I didn't have to have so much tape and so much stuff on my eye. So they did tell me I would have to stay overnight, and I expected that, but I didn't know like how long they were gonna monitor me. And I feel like because this was pandemic time, there was just short staff of nurses, doctors, and specialists. So even though they kept saying you need to wait until the doctor comes, the OB comes, they wanted me to see 4 to 5 specialists, they just wouldn't come. So I'm just like waiting and waiting. By this time, you know, I did get a hospital bag dropped off, but then even that, the hospital bag got lost in the hospital. And I was sitting there like calling all different departments of the hospital. It was just being like transferred around everywhere. So it took a while to even track it down and get my stuff. But when I did, I was like so thankful to like even have, well, obviously my phone charger, but like a toothbrush, a couple of snacks, things like that.
It's the next morning and I'm still at the hospital. I had a rough night of sleep because obviously they keep coming back to check my vitals, take blood work. The last blood test I had was painful, but overall, I don't know. I guess I feel pretty much the same as yesterday. I thought I would feel a little bit better, or that my face would look a little better. I'm thinking about Lincoln right now. I'm wondering how he's doing, how Joe's doing, getting him up ready for school. Prayed for him.
The next morning, I woke up and I was so nauseous. So I ordered breakfast, but I ordered the wrong thing. I ordered like an omelet thinking that that should be good, but this is, I think, when I grew an aversion to eggs, sort of. I love eggs normally, but I could not choke it down for the life of me. I was so nauseous that I really was going to throw up, and they said you cannot throw up your medicines, and they had to give me a cocktail of medicines for like my prenatals and everything. And around that time, the speech pathologist came over because she wanted to check to see my swallowing, like, you know, just kind of like how my mouth is moving. She said that it would take a while, like I would have to do these face exercises.
I just got some pain medication for my like sinus headache. I'm gonna get the Zofran. I have to get a shot in my stomach. I have to take these pills. I have to meet with a neurologist today, the OB-GYN today, a speech therapist today. And with all that said, they don't know when I'm gonna be discharged. I just got the Zofran injected into me. They said it should be instant relief because it goes into your bloodstream. It does feel like kind of cooling. I have to eat my medicine because it's timed, so I'm gonna just go for it since this medicine's in me now, so hopefully I won't throw it up. Oh, here we go. My nurse is an angel. She found me a little can of Sprite to help with my nausea, but the medicine definitely is helping a little. I was able to take a bite of my food, and I think this will help too.
By lunchtime, I felt better, and that's kind of the way my whole pregnancy went with my nausea. I'd always feel better like maybe around 12:30 or so. Mornings were so bad. So I finally ordered some like softer foods. I ordered like fish and mashed potatoes and like a potato soup, and it was so good. And little did I know that I would soon develop gestational diabetes. So like this was like, this food actually looks good to me because like after I developed gestational diabetes, I couldn't eat any of this kind of stuff, like this carb heavy, you know, things. But when I was nauseous, that's all I wanted to eat, like kind of softer foods, carbs, comforting foods. And then shortly after that, I felt like I was on the set of The Walking Dead, like, you know, the opening scene where he wakes up and he's completely abandoned in the apocalypse type of thing. And there's no one around. You just hear beeping and you see like medicine dripping, but you see like no one around. That's kind of how I felt. And they kept just saying, you need to wait for this doctor or that. But this doctor or that wouldn't come. So I'm just like, spending a lot of time waiting, and they had to eventually give me a shot in my stomach to prevent blood clots. I thought, okay, no big deal, because I've been getting like poked and prodded at this point. I was getting blood tests all night. Like they'd wake me up at like 2 in the morning or 3, 5. And when they gave me the shot in the stomach, I don't know what was going on, but it was hurt so bad. Like I was doubled over in pain, and I don't know what the heck happened. But I was like, please do not ever give me this shot again. I cannot take it. It was the most painful thing. So they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, can I just walk around? I'm able-bodied. Because at first they had an alarm attached to my bed, and I just asked them to take it off because I thought I was fine. So then they agreed that as long as I have my mask on, I can just walk around outside. And I started becoming known. Like people would see me just out on my walks. I couldn't stray far. I couldn't go outside, obviously, because they said if the doctor did make his rounds and came around and I missed it, then I missed it. So I just wanted to take a shower at this point. I was so hot. I was sweaty. I had gone through so much trauma. My hair was ratty and I just really wanted to take a shower. But I had all this like heart monitor stuff attached to me and all these things, the IV. If I need to take a shower, I would have had to ask a nurse to help me like dress all of those things, take all those patches off. And I would have had to quickly shower before the doctor came and then put everything back on. And there was just no way of knowing when he would come. So I just had to not take a shower.
I just found out that I had to stay overnight. One more night. My hair is getting more frazzled by the minute.
At this point, my friends and my family did know I was in a hospital and that I had possible hypertension and Bell's palsy, but they were all confused as to why. And that was the enigma of the day. Like, I was at the hospital for as long as I was because they could not figure out what was wrong with me, what was causing all this stuff. Was it COVID? No, it wasn't COVID. It wasn't a virus. Or they said it could have been, but they didn't see any traces of it. I didn't have the flu. And even my hypertension, like with all my results, the weird thing was that I was low on sodium. So it's not like weird, right? Because if you think you have high blood pressure, that you'd be like high on sodium, but I was low on sodium and everything else was checking out right. So it was just a weird freak like situation I was in and no one could figure it out. Back at home, Joe started sending me pictures and videos. My friends actually dropped off food and they ate dinner together and they had a play date and like that kind of stuff. So that made me so happy to know that they were being well taken care of, even when people didn't realize like what was actually happening, that there was more of a scariness going on. Like we weren't sure what was going on with my pregnancy and stuff.
Our friends were so nice. They came over and they're all eating together. Yes, I have my eye patch back on. Yeah, and they're eating together and they just sent me some pictures and it's so cute. I'm so glad Lincoln's not just alone right now.
I finally took a shower because I couldn't stand it. Like I found some shampoo and I kind of like with all my wires on, like gave myself like a sponge bath and like washed my hair with one hand in the sink. And I'm one-handed because I still had like the IV and like the blood pressure cuff and stuff. I was like walking around with like the IV on the thing, you know, and I was just trying my best because I just couldn't take it. Didn't have a blow dry or anything, so I just looked like even more of a rumpled mess, but I felt better at least.
Here's my dinner. I got chicken marsala, sweet potato mash, green beans, and corn. And I got my potato soup again because I kind of liked it from earlier today. Ginger ale for nausea, and a little bit of chocolate pudding. Need salt.
By the last day, I couldn't control what I was eating. They figured that they would just give me like a diet for what my situation was. But it was weird because they didn't know what my situation was. And again, I said I had tested low sodium. So if anything, they were confused. Like they were giving me like this diet for people who need to be on low sodium. But yet at lunchtime, they gave me a bag of chips because they figured I needed sodium. It was weird. So like, I just felt like a little bit tortured because, yeah, I'm so nauseous. I'm pregnant. When you're pregnant, you don't want to eat what you don't want to eat. You can't muster it. And I was having inversions and things were not satisfying. So like they give me like random things like French toast and scrambled eggs and like some Raisin Bran. That's not even like Raisin Bran Crunch. Just was not hitting a spot. So, you know, I was eating that for breakfast. And then for lunch, it was another like grilled chicken sandwich, but on a wheat bread. It was super dry. They gave me some salt. They gave me the bag of chips. But it just wasn't like, I just wanted soup. It was a little harder, but that was kind of my last meal at the hospital. I think I was there now for 3 days.
I'm going to be discharged today. Joe is picking me up, so he should be here in about 15 minutes. I packed up my stuff. I changed back into my clothes that I came in with. All I want to do is take a shower at home and lie down and just be in the comfort of my own home. So I'm looking forward to just kind of having peace. I also miss Joe and I miss Lincoln, and I know he'll be so excited to see me. He hasn't seen me in about 3 days now. This is how I'm going to be discharged. Iron matey.
The nurses were so funny because when I left, they were all so nice because they're like, yeah, you were like the youngest and like least crankiest on this floor, like most low maintenance. So they really enjoyed having me there. I barely bothered them. I barely buzzed for anything, and I was just very compliant. The doctor eventually did see me, but it was like a 5-minute visit and there was nothing much that he could say. The cardiac doctor never got to visit me again, so they said I might have to just follow up on my own outside. Eventually when I left, I just had a really nice nurse, and when I saw Joe and Lincoln, I was so emotional.
Hello. Hi. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, Lincoln, I love you so much. I missed you so much. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Love you so much. I missed you. Going home.
Lincoln, we have a pirate for mommy.
It's Halloween.
Joe's parents were like, you know, super nice but freaking out. They like really wanted me to go to an acupuncturist. I've never really done acupuncture. It's very common amongst Asians too, just if you have this problem or that, you do acupuncture. But I just never tried it before. I was a little skeptical too. I wasn't sure like how it would work, but I was willing to try it. However, they wanted me to go like the very next morning, and I was so tired at this point, I didn't want to go. And I wasn't sure if acupuncture was okay for pregnant people. So at this point, we felt like we had to tell them that we were pregnant, kind of again, unceremoniously, just kind of out of the blue. They were just like so shocked and caught off guard because like we were on the way to go to the acupuncturist. So it wasn't like something that they were like expecting at all. But they said it was safe. I get there and I was really surprised to see that like the acupuncture was just for my hands and my feet, which was interesting because I'm like, what does that really have to do with like my face or my neck or pregnancy or like anything? And the acupuncturist said like I have to come as soon as possible because like if you let it go on for too long, then you might not be able to recover as quickly as you want to. The next day, they took me to another acupuncturist and I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to stop being poked and so many needles in me. I was so tired, but I wanted to just give it a fair shot. And they were so nice to even come with me. Yeah, I felt really cared for by them at this point because I was like, oh, I can't believe my in-laws are like taking me and like sitting by me and like doing this research and stuff. So then I went, and this time the guy did put like the needles in my face and my neck, and I had to sit with infrared light, just kind of like have the heat on me. And it was like during the winter too. So they kept saying like, don't have your face exposed to cold. So like have it covered wherever you go, like put on a hood. Don't let cold air, cold water, cold anything hit it. Don't drink cold water. I was just like, all right, I just tried to follow anyway. And then he gave me Chinese herbal medicine, all these kind of like roots mushed up and like herbs and stuff. And he said I had to drink it, like, I don't know if it was like 3 times a day for a few days in a row. And it doesn't really have that much of a taste, but it still kind of made me nauseous because, you know, it's not the best. It's very herby. And I try to follow the rules. But then after that, like he wanted me to come back for like a couple more sessions. But I did talk to some of my friends who are ophthalmologists, and they kind of felt like it wasn't a good idea for me to do that right away because like the needles were being like poked like near the nerves of my eye and my face. And they wanted me to have a chance to heal my eye. The nerve that goes to fix the eye takes the longest. I opted to not continue on with the acupuncture. So maybe if I did, it could have healed faster, but I just chose to let it do naturally and do like face exercises. Overall, for the next few days when I was home, I was really thankful for people because people were, you know, sending us Grubhub cards, dropping off meals, like homemade meals and, you know, restaurant meals. And they were giving us treats and flowers and like anything, little cards and things like that, just to make sure that I was okay. I felt so blessed by our community and friends.
This is the kind of stuff that people have been doing just like to brighten my day. So it's so sweet. And those are all my medicines. The homemade meal was dropped off to us by Jeff and Ellen. And stuffed shells, salad, and garlic bread.
But they didn't even know I was pregnant. So I felt like really deceptive that I couldn't say anything. I eventually told people, but I mean, it took a long time. So they just thought I was just recovering from this weird mystery illness. As that I'm recording this, I am almost 37 weeks pregnant, which means that I am like full term considering. And actually, I will probably be induced next week. So I'm just trying to record this as fast as I can and kind of keep you updated. But it was a long road. It was the length of my entire pregnancy. I was dealing with the hypertension and Bell's palsy. The hypertension, I still take medicines for that today. I take 2 different kinds. Oh yeah, and then I was so thankful because when I got back home, we were finally able to go to like a real OB appointment.
Today is the day we finally get to go see our first ultrasound. I'm currently 8 weeks pregnant today. I'm super nauseous this morning. Joe gets to see the ultrasound, but then he has to go away for the second part of the appointment. But this will be my very first official OB appointment and ultrasound, so I'm excited the day's finally here. Here we go.
This is a silent afro, so you won't hear anything here. So you can see this is like the umbilical cord right over here, going to the belly over here.
Aww.
It looks like you have a
Such a cute blob.
So the head, that's how you know where the brain is. And there's your little baby shrimp.
It was so reassuring to hear the heartbeat, to see the baby that was just a tiny little blip on the screen in the ER to now be like a full-fledged like little miniature baby. It was so cute to me. I was so thankful. So even though I was going through all this suffering and still pain and all these recovery things, like I was ultimately just joyful and thankful because you know that we went through a hard road from the time that we were pregnant with Lincoln, 5 years later, a miscarriage in between until now. And the fact that I'm even pregnant at 40 is like a miracle in itself. So all the while, I was truly just thankful. Now that I've had a chance to do more research, I feel like a lot of the symptoms that I had been feeling makes a lot of sense. Because if you look up Bell's palsy, a lot of the symptoms include the pain in the back of the ear and in the jaw. And there's the dryness of the eye and the pain in the eye as well. Sometimes there's drooling, which I experienced. Sometimes there's a headache. This is an interesting one because I found out that there's a ringing in the ear. And the funny thing is I didn't have that in the moment, but I had it later, postpartum, and I thought it was just coming out of nowhere. And now looking back at it, it's almost like I had an aha moment, like, oh my gosh, that's where the ringing in the ear came from, because I thought I was hallucinating. I even went to an ENT. I got an ear exam done and I had perfect hearing. They didn't see anything wrong, but I definitely would hear like a whooshing or a ringing in my ear postpartum, even when I was just like sitting there rocking with Taylor. I mentioned that I suffered from chronic dizziness in my chronic illness story, and that's kind of where it was stemming from kind of like that whooshing and that ringing in my ear. Sometimes you also have a low tolerance for loud noises, and that definitely happened to me. Something I didn't mention is that sometimes when Taylor would cry when she was first born, all of a sudden it felt like it was amplified, like it was a loudspeaker, and it was just like resonating in my ear to the point of just kind of like ringing in my head, and that's what actually would trigger my dizziness. So how did I heal? Ultimately, honestly, it just took time. Healing can take anywhere from like 2 to 3 weeks up to 6 months. And for me, it took me several months, probably the entirety of my pregnancy. I think it was healed by the time that I had my baby shower. So it was towards the end. And I was so thankful that I could actually smile again in pictures and feel and look normal again. How am I doing right now? I think that I am about 100% recovered, except for my eye. So my right side of my face is what really is bothering me, and it's my right eye that still hurts to this day. Like, it doesn't hurt all the time, but if I'm exceptionally tired, or maybe I have allergies, sometimes my eye will just randomly and sporadically just start tearing. I think it can help by just preventing your dry eye in general. So just make sure you carry around eye drops, especially the ones that are like gel, that are like more thick, I guess. Sometimes I just take allergy medicine. It's just the symptoms. You're just preventing symptoms at this point. Do I still have the ringing in my ear or sensitivity to loud noises? Not particularly, but every so often it might happen. Do I have PTSD from it? I do, honestly. So there's times where I feel like I'm gonna get the Bell's palsy symptoms again. And it does feel like a little bit of panic to me, a little bit of anxiety. And so I'm still struggling with that, but I am getting better. I feel like a lot of it has to do with just chilling out and knowing that it will be okay and it will pass, and deep breathing. I do a lot of like yoga, diaphragm breathing, and that helps. I pray, I meditate, and so I feel like any of those things, drinking water, just kind of like snapping yourself out of it. Did acupuncture help me? Ultimately, I'm not sure, because after I looked up some research, it does say that people do it, but then it's not necessarily proven that it works. I say whatever makes you feel better, whatever you want to give it a chance, like you can do. And I know that like Angelina Jolie believed in acupuncture when she had Bell's palsy too. Doing some facial exercises and just letting time pass, it healed on its own, because it is a temporary facial paralysis. There are cases where it doesn't come back 100%. As far as I know, there's no other things that you can do to prevent it, except for just know that if you are starting to feel sick, that to really just take care of yourself, eat your vitamin C, your vitamin D, and sometimes I take magnesium too, because I think that's just overall good for your muscles, your joints, your nerves. I take magnesium at night, and so I think it's just doing preventative things to stay healthy, and if you do get sick, to not stress out too much, because, you know, there's the question of, does stress cause Bell's palsy? Is that the reason I developed it? And for a long while, I thought that was the culprit, but after some research, it's not that stress gives you Bell's palsy, but it's more like stress could amplify, or stress could be the cause of the virus, because sometimes there's like stress-induced viruses. Another theory is the fact that I was traveling while I was pregnant, and when you're pregnant, your immune system isn't the strongest. There could be so many different things. It was the time of COVID, I was on a flight, I was tired, I was probably stressed out about my progesterone and HCG levels not being high enough. You know, just I feel like it could have been a slew of things, because in all honesty, I started to feel a little bit of like lip numbness. I think that was like the first sign of it. And I felt that like the day before we left Austin, the day before I was on the flight. So I started to feel it even before the flight. So somewhere along the line, either during the trip or even before that, I must have had some sort of virus that I didn't know, and it was just kind of like slowly making its way. There are some people who ask if there's like a tie between pregnancy and Bell's palsy, and sometimes there is. And in fact, the funny thing is that my sister knew that too. So when she first found out that I had Bell's palsy, she honestly wondered if I was pregnant. And I didn't tell her because I wasn't telling people at that time. There's a chance that it could come back. That's what they say. And if it happens again, I just have to know that there's probably a good chance that it'll fix itself again. Honestly, I thought that I had already gone through enough at this point. But then when I heard that I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes, I felt like it was just almost too much for me to bear. And that's still part of my story. So make sure that you watch this coming up video of my gestational diabetes story. Make sure that you watch that, because it's like an ongoing saga of what I've been through and how I'm kind of like creeping my way back to recovery. Remember, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.